to another edition of BSPN. Wow, Mike, you got a lot skinnier.
That's right.
Yeah. Mike is out. He's trying out for the Binghamton basketball team, so best of luck to him. But along with Jeremy Bella and Brandon Corey, I'm Brett Malman. Tonight we're going to start out. The World Series champions have been crowned, and the Royals took the crown from the Mets. Was it just the Mets losing it late, or was it the Royals just overpowering them?
Well, it was a combination of the Mets losing it and the Royals just being a lot better of a team all around. You look at the hitting of the Royals, they string hits together, they steal bases, they run the bases well, and they showed that especially in Game 5. They showed that in Game 1. They got off to an early start. And then playing in New York, I mean, the fans were riled up, but the Mets, Jeurys Familia blowing 3 saves in the series. Not really all of them were his fault, because he was coming in with runners on base in messy situations. But it's going to come down. The whole offseason is going to be Terry Collins. Should we have brought Matt Harvey out for that 9th inning? I think it was a good move. Matt Harvey was throwing well. He was throwing hard. But the moment seemed to get the best of him. And the Royals, that's what they do. They take advantage of any weakness in opposing teams. And I don't see any struggle with the Royals getting back there next season. They're the best team in baseball, and they're only getting better.
So, Brendan, do you think that the Mets are going to re-sign Yoenis Cespedes?
I don't think so. It's just going to cost too much, and that's how these things work out a lot of times. Probably go somewhere else, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Then you talk about the Mets. They're a team that doesn't really like to spend a lot of money, and so trying to pull back a guy like Cespedes or even Daniel Murphy, it's going to be a tough task for them.
Yeah, 9 Mets have declared for free agency, including Bartolo Colon. That's the one guy. I hope the Mets can re-sign him, but they're really not going to need him next year with Zach Wheeler coming back.
Yeah, definitely a fan favorite, though. That should be pretty interesting. Do you think the Mets could get back to the postseason even?
The Mets have a good shot. They have to be able to hit the way they did this year. I don't know if they can keep that up for a whole season, because this year they couldn't. I mean, they had the worst offense in the first half of the season. They had the best offense in the National League in the second half of the season. So you look at their strength, and it is pitching, and they are getting Wheeler back. They're going to have Harvey, DeGrom, Syndergaard, Mads, and Wheeler in that starting rotation. I mean, that's going to be one for the ages. So they're going to win a lot of games, 3-1, 4-2. They're going to have to do that. They're going to have to steal bases, they're going to have to run well, and they're going to have to get some of these young guys up in the majors, guys like Dilson Herrera, who could be making moves next season. You're going to have Conforto for a full year. So it's a young Mets team, and I think they're only getting better, and they can do what the Royals did. I mean, the Royals, they felt a lot of heartbreak last season, losing it in Game 7 against Madison Bumgarner, who just destroyed them and destroyed everybody in that postseason. The Royals got back and won it. The Mets have a chance. But the National League, there's a lot of good young teams that are getting better. And I mean, if we're going to make our way too early predictions, I think the Cubs are going to make it to the World Series next year. So the Mets, can they get back? They can. But there's a lot of good teams.
I think the Cubs might be back. Back to the Future might have been 1 year off.
That's got to be the popular pick.
Interesting decision, though. But I think that if you look at the NL East just in general, you have a hungry, feisty Washington Nationals team who wants to get back and wants to beat the Mets next year. That's going to be their goal. And they hired Dusty Baker Tuesday afternoon. And I think that is a move that will end up, probably propelling them into that top spot.
Yeah, that's a really good move. You bring in a manager who has a lot of experience with a team that seems to fall off late towards the end of seasons. They can't put a whole, solid season together. But for the Nationals, it's always going to be that question of, can they have a consistent season, and can they actually do what they're expected to do? And I'm not sure. They are going to be healthy next year. Health was a big reason why they struggled this season. A lot of guys were out. Jason Worth was out. Ryan Zimmerman was out for a long time. Anthony Rendon was out for a while. So that health is going to be a concern. But their pitching, you'd have to think Washington's pitching is going to be right up there with the Mets. So, if that can be their key. But a good signing of Dusty Baker. He's going to bring a lot of experience to that team.
Now let's jump right into football. Monday Night Football, the Colts absolutely they shocked them. I mean, they gave them a late scare, the Carolina Panthers, and the Panthers are still undefeated, but do you see their defense as a weakness right now?
Well, it was a close game, but Carolina's defense, you have to look at Andrew Luck's passes, and at least 6, maybe 7 of those passes could have been picked up. So Andrew Luck, he had what, 2 interceptions? He was lucky to get away with that.
Luck to be lucky.
Yeah,
to be
Luck was lucky, and this guy is having a really rough season. I mean, this doesn't look in his form, that he was last year.
And that's right. Now people are talking about him potentially being injured and that holding him back. But just watching him in that Carolina game, he just did not look good at all. I mean, Cam didn't look the same he did either, but just that whole game was really kind of messy.
Yeah, the rain was a problem for both teams early on, and then once the rain stopped, the game got going a little bit. The Colts did make that comeback, which you have to give them credit for. But Carolina, they win games, they win sloppy games. That's what they do. They run the ball. Jonathan Stewart had another big game. Cam Newton, he does what Cam Newton needs to do to win. He made some good throws in overtime, and they could have won right away because he made that perfect throw to Ted Ginn Jr., who dropped the ball.
Crazy play.
Yeah, so you have to have these guys making catches. Greg Olsen, though, he's going to be a big threat for Cam Newton all season, and I would not be shocked if the Panthers won the NFC this season. I think they can get all the way there to the Super Bowl. I don't have a problem saying that because their defense is so strong. They really just gather around running backs. Nobody can run on them, and they get to receivers really well. They cover well, and they get to the quarterback. Yesterday, they didn't get to the quarterback as well as they should have. They were a little worn down late in that game. But if they can get pressure on any quarterback, I would not be shocked if they got all the way there.
Well, while the Panthers are a very good team, I just can't see them going that far in the playoffs with the wide receivers that they have. I mean, Greg Olsen is great, one of the best tight ends in the NFL, but I just can't see this group of wide receivers who's just struggling all around bring this team into deep into the postseason.
Right, and I think that was the whole debate at the beginning of the season when they lost Kelvin Benjamin, whether or not this team would be able to take over for him. And, Devin Funchess was the guy that they were talking about would be the next guy, and, he had 1 catch last night. So you got to look elsewhere. And then, of course, Ginn with that awful through-the-hands drop that would have sealed the deal, that would have won the game for them. But it should be interesting to see. I think they do win the division, but I don't know that they'll go far in the playoffs, especially with the competition that they have around, the NFC. And talking about the NFC, undefeated team, the Packers went down to Denver and they lost. And Denver seemed to be a team that was struggling on offense. They bring in Vernon Davis this week, trading with the San Francisco 49ers. And so now the Broncos absolutely maul Aaron Rodgers. And how does Aaron Rodgers get up from this?
Aaron Rodgers he'll be back because he's Aaron Rodgers and he can lead that offense into any game. But that was just a case of Denver being way better on that night. The defense, some people are calling it one of the best of all time. I mean, they can really get to the quarterback. They made Aaron Rodgers look flustered in the pocket, which not a lot of teams can do. And they didn't allow him to escape the pocket, which is one of his major advantages, one of the keys to victory usually for the Green Bay Packers. They couldn't really run the ball, and guys were just not getting open. So you have to look at Denver, led by their defense, as one of the best teams in the NFL right now. Still undefeated, as you mentioned, 7-0. So I don't think it's a case of the Packers and Rodgers maybe struggling in that offense, because they were playing well, and the offense was carrying them early in the season. But Denver was just a lot better in Denver on this night.
So yeah, and Peyton Manning just looked so much better in this game. Just like a different player from the rest of the season. Distributed the ball well, made great throws. And with that offense playing the way that it did against the Packers and that defense playing the way it has all season, do you guys think this could be a team that could win it all?
Yeah, honestly I do. I think that I think it's going to come down to the Packers and the Broncos right now. I think that the Broncos are a team that can knock off the Patriots, which I know you don't really agree with, but I do see the Broncos as that threat. And now with Vernon Davis, who didn't really do much towards the end of his time with San Francisco, I think that having a guy like Peyton Manning who loves to throw to his tight ends, we saw it a couple of years ago with Jacob Tamme, who had a touchdown this week. We saw it with Julius Thomas, who's now in Jacksonville. Now they bring in Vernon Davis, and I think that that's going to rejuvenate that offense a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Vernon Davis, it's a good addition, but I'm not sure he's ready to be Vernon Davis right away. It's going to take time to fit into that offense. I mean, he hasn't caught a touchdown all season. He hasn't really been a factor for San Francisco for the last maybe year and a half. So he's not just going to be Vernon Davis right away, but it does add a weapon that, later in the season I think will help them a lot. But I still see the Patriots being the strongest team. I mean, they showed it against a good Miami team that was sort of getting better. The Patriots just destroyed them. What they do is Tom Brady spreading the ball around, running the ball. They can just do everything on offense. And you can say, the Broncos, their defense may be able to shut him down, but he's Tom Brady. He's the ultimate X factor in NFL history, and he's the type of guy that can knock off the Broncos defense.
And we're going to see that in a couple weeks when they match up in Denver on primetime television. So I think that could be when the Patriots streak ends of being undefeated. We'll see if the Broncos are undefeated by that time too. If so, that's probably going to go down as one of the all-time most hyped regular season matches. Yeah, we talk about the Broncos defense, and a defense that just did not do anything was the New York Jets. And their defense they came into the season, they were phenomenal. And this week was just like an off week for them. It seemed that they didn't know how to tackle anybody, and they took a loss to the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah, Oakland can score in bunches. Derek Carr is really leading that offense, and he's looking like a really, really good young quarterback. Now he has his weapon, Amari Cooper. He has another weapon in Michael Crabtree, who is having a resurgent season. And he looks like Latavius Murray, who can run the ball on the ground. I'm not sold on Oakland's defense, which is why I can't see them, I still can't see them making the playoffs, even though right now they would be in that wild card position. But their defense is still pretty weak. But their offense, they can play with anybody and score a lot of points. So I do like Oakland right now. But the Jets, you have to look at their defense. They fell apart. They could not make tackles. And then on the other side, Ryan Fitzpatrick getting hurt in that first quarter, bringing in Geno Smith. We don't really know who's going to be the quarterback next week. Maybe they bring in Ryan Mallett. Maybe they bring in Colin Kaepernick, benched by the San Francisco 49ers this week. That would be a move that could change the Jets franchise around. I really think that could put their franchise in a whole different position if they can bring him in. So you got to try to make that deal work.
There's definitely a lot of franchises right now trying to turn around some bad seasons. The Titans just got rid of Ken Whisenhunt. They drafted a new quarterback in Marcus Mariota. He's going to be their franchise guy. I think they just want to go in a different direction. San Francisco benching Colin Kaepernick. Even though Blaine Gabbert's terrible, they want to go in a different direction. And you can see this around the league. Some of these teams that are continuously bad year to year to year, they're looking to just completely change. The Browns doing it too, talking about trading some of their top offensive linemen and Joe Thomas, Alex Mack. So they're just looking to blow up the roster, get rid of the coaching staff, do something to turn around the franchise.
Yeah, and Johnny Manziel, of course, is going to start for them this week. So we talk about the quarterback carousel, and you look at a team like Washington. Is it time to trade RG3? You benched him, and now you're going with Kirk Cousins. That's your guy. Is it time to trade him?
I think it is, considering that both these guys were drafted in the same draft, and Kirk Cousins was really brought in to compete with RG3, even though Robert Griffin III was drafted second overall. So you might not think it's really a competition, but that was their intention all along, I think, in the front office, to have them compete. Kirk Cousins, he's played pretty well given the circumstances. Alfred Morris hasn't really been able to run the ball this year, so they have Matt Jones now starting. Deshaun Jackson has been hurt for most of the season, so he doesn't have his top weapon. I think, like I said, given the circumstances, I think Kirk Cousins is having a pretty solid year, and he's your starter going forward, so it is probably time to look at trading RG3. I don't know if they're going to do it. A lot of teams don't like to trade players. I don't know what they're going to be able to get for him, considering what they gave up to get him. It's not going to be worth it, but we'll see what Washington does.
And it's interesting that the entire St. Louis Rams, the formation of their team came out of that trade, and now they seem to be rolling with Todd Gurley out there. Talking about quarterbacks, though, Drew Brees had a fantastic game, 7 touchdowns, ties the NFL record, and Eli Manning on the other side of the ball throws 6 touchdowns, and there was just no defense in this game, but an absolutely unbelievable display by these two quarterbacks.
Yeah, lack of defense for both teams. New Orleans, they can score. And Drew Brees is back this season with a vengeance. And they started the season off slow. Drew Brees struggled a little bit. They couldn't get a run game going. But now he has all his weapons healthy. C.J. Spiller healthy now. Mark Ingram healthy. And you look at these receivers, and they're putting up pretty good work. And I think Drew Brees is the type of guy and the type of quarterback that can lead the Saints back to the playoffs. It's going to be a struggle. But if they can score that much, I don't care if they can't play defense because I don't think a lot of other teams have a guy like Eli Manning who's going to be able to put up 6 touchdowns. So they're still going to be able to win those types of games where they can score 50 points.
Well, that's not going to happen every week, and a lot of times it comes down to defense in these close games. And I honestly think Rob Ryan's probably the worst defensive coordinator in the NFL. And this secondary, it just doesn't look very good. Browner had a lot of penalties in that game. He's the most penalized player in the NFL right now. And I just don't think they can make the playoffs, especially in their division, which is looking very good with the Panthers and the Falcons. I just don't see it.
And we look at one more game that happened in this week as Ben Roethlisberger came back, didn't really perform well. Andy Dalton on the other side didn't really perform well. But the big story, Le'Veon Bell, torn MCL. He's done for the year. And that ended up setting out a spark of injuries around the league. Talk about the biggest injuries.
Yeah, Le'Veon Bell, you got to look at him as the biggest injury because the Steelers, with Roethlisberger healthy, they were about ready to make a run in the AFC. But now they're not going to be able to do it because they don't have that run game. D'Angelo Williams, I think he can fill in admirably. But yeah, that's a big injury. You look at guys like Matt Forte hurt, but we'll see. Maybe he'll be back in a few weeks. The Bears might keep him out for a while because they're not playing really great football right now. But you look at a guy like Ricardo Lockett for the Seahawks. I think they're going to miss him. He was injured on a punt return.
On an ugly play.
Yeah, so he got hit pretty hard. He was knocked out, and he's probably not going to play for the rest of the season. And they're a team that needs those receivers because Russell Wilson, he needs someone to throw to when he's being attacked because the offensive line can't protect him. And he needs to scramble.
Jimmy Graham has to protect because the offensive line can't protect.
Yeah, so they need those receivers to go out and catch the ball. And Lockett was making a bit of an impact the last couple of weeks, but it's going to be a key injury for them.
Who's your key injury of the week?
I have to say Matt Forte. Le'Veon Bell, definitely the best player, and he definitely had the worst injury, maybe other than Ricardo Lockett. But, they have D'Angelo Williams there, and he played very well when Le'Veon Bell was suspended the first couple games. But Matt Forte, he's just such a big part of that Bears offense. He just takes up such a huge percentage of their yards on offense. He can't be replaced. They have Jeremy Langford there, but I don't see him having nearly the same production as Forte.
For me, it's got to be Keenan Allen having a kidney procedure. He's done for the year, and now Phillip Rivers' favorite target is gone. And I think that this is now time for the tight ends to take over, Ladarius Green and Antonio Gates. So hopefully they can get it together. But of course, they're competing in a division with a tough team like the Denver Broncos, who now can put a cornerback on Gates with a linebacker.
Yeah, on a truly somber note, Steve Smith going out with a torn Achilles. He's going to miss the rest of the season. This could be a career ender, but I think he's going to be on the Carolina Panthers next year.
Ooh.
I don't know about that. Not the way that he played against them last year and just tore them apart. And
he's going to be back in Carolina next season.
I think it's going to actually take a lot of persuading for him to come back, though. I don't think he wants to go out this way. But it might lean him towards it's going to take some persuading from those teams to get him back in uniform for next year.
But that would be fun to see.
You think if he comes back, he's going to have the same level of production, or is he going to?
Well, he could be a solid number 2, even number 3, because you have Kelvin Benjamin, you have other guys. Greg Olsen, I guess, is a tight end, but he's really your number 2. You make Steve Smith that third target, that deep threat.
We've seen it in the past where guys do come back from these kinds of injuries. We saw Darrelle Revis a couple of years ago tore his ACL and was done for the year, and he's back to his elite self over the last couple years. Jamal Charles did it a couple of times, and so I think that this is a time where the medical facilities are doing a great job at getting them back to that top level that they can. We saw it with Foster until he got hurt again, another big name off the board, but I think that this is a time where the medical facilities are doing a great job getting these guys back to top shape. And before we go to commercial break, Brendan, of course, does our Binghamton Sports Report. I know the basketball season's starting next week, and so the soccer playoffs, so we definitely look forward to that. We'll be right back after these short breaks. And we're back. And apparently, so are the New York Knicks. Tell us about that, Jeremy.
The Knicks are back, and they have a lot of young talent. Kristaps Porzingis has been very, very good out of the gate. His outside shot has been good. He's been able to take guys off the dribble. I just like everything that I've seen from him. You look at a lot of other young guys on the Knicks, like Jerry Grant, like Derek Williams, who's still pretty young and still has a lot of talent. And you look at other guys that they have. So the Knicks, I think they are back. Right now 2-2, so you don't want to really say that they're going to be even a 500 team. They're probably going to be an under 500 team, but they can score a lot of points and they play hard, and that's really all Knicks fans want to see. So you got to like what you see so far out of them.
And it's not like they need to be 500 to make the playoffs in the East. I mean, there's just really a lack of good teams there. You have the Cavs, you have the Hawks, the Heat, a few other ones, but when you get down to that 7 and 8 seed, at that point, it's just a toss-up.
And dreams come true. One of my favorite players in the league, Jimmer Fredette, got drafted by the D-League team, and it'll be interesting to see whether the Knicks end up signing him. Definitely an interesting signing, though, playing in that triangle offense that definitely relies on a shooting point guard. And Jimmer Fredette, in his college career, proved that he is exactly that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who needs to reel in his outside shot, though. You can't be taking pull-up jumpers from, 10 feet behind the three-point line. Just got to calm down a little bit. I think if he gets that shot going, he could be an asset to the team. We're moving over to another really hot three-point shooter right now. Steph Curry has been on fire to start the season. The MVP of last season is on a mission to win it again. He's on a mission to get his team back to an NBA championship. The Warriors last night blew out the Memphis Grizzlies by 50 points. A defensive team in Memphis could not play any defense in this game. I honestly think the Warriors are better than last season, and they're proving it right now. They're deep. Steph Curry is, like I said, on a mission. He's on fire. And I see this team winning, 65, something like high 60s this year.
Is it possible that his shot release got a little bit quicker?
It is possible.
It looks that way.
It just seems like this guy wants to be the best shooter on the planet, and he is. And I think he works on it, every day to get better. And somehow he's been getting better.
And it's not only Steph Curry on the Warriors, but they're returning just about everyone from last year's roster. They're going to gel better. They're all going to improve. I think this is the favorite team to win, at least for me.
Yeah, definitely got to be. Looking around the league, who are your top rookies?
Right now you gotta look at Karl-Anthony Towns. He's having a big impact in Minnesota. And I think playing with a guy like Kevin Garnett, that's going to teach Karl-Anthony Towns a lot about playing basketball and playing in the NBA. He's a guy who they're going to rely on early on because he's an inside scorer, and he also has a pretty solid mid-range shot. So Towns, he's a good defender, good shooter on offense. He's going to put up a lot of points. And I think if you have him in the middle of that young Minnesota team that is sort of gelling, getting better, you look at this as a guy who can win the Rookie of the Year. I think Joel Okafor is going to have a nice season, obviously in Philadelphia, because they don't have a lot of talent on that team, a very young team. And you look at him as a guy who's going to need to score for them. So right now, those are my top two rookies by far.
For me, I'd say Justice Winslow and Stanley Johnson, two of the small forwards drafted a little bit later. I think Stanley Johnson looked great in the preseason, in the summer league. Justice Winslow, I think, can play a big role for the Heat. Maybe not. He maybe won't have a huge season. I don't think he's going to win Rookie of the Year, but I think in the future he could develop into one of the better players in the NBA.
And for me, I got to say Justice Winslow and Karl-Anthony Towns from both of you. I do totally agree with the fact that bringing him into an offense that has Kevin Garnett there teaching, I think that he can develop into a kind of player that Kevin Garnett was, and especially in an offense ran by Andrew Wiggins. I think that this team, when they gel, they're going to be really, really good. And talking about Justice Winslow, I think that he's making a major impact on the Heat. I think that it'll drive them probably far into the playoffs. Definitely a good role player for them.
Yeah, the Heat definitely looking strong. They had that big comeback win against the Rockets. The Rockets not looking very strong. James Harden struggling. What do you think about them this year?
I definitely think they need Dwight Howard back to full strength. He did come back last night. He did block a lot of shots, but it seems that he was sitting underneath the hoop for a lot of the night, and he needs to be back and mobile. And James Harden, of course, has to get back on track.
Yeah, you need James Harden to be that guy who's going to put up 30 points a night. that's what you need in Houston. But they brought in some good role players. Marcus Thornton, a good addition. Trevor Reeves, I mean, he's going to have a nice year for them. So they do have role players. And then you look at Ty Lawson, a guy who doesn't play a lot of defense, but he can also score a lot. They're going to need to put up points because they don't play a lot of defense. But Dwight Howard, he could be that defensive difference maker, and could, I think they're going to be fine making the playoffs this season.
Of course, but like when you look at the West and how strong some of these teams are, I just don't see the Rockets really making a run.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good teams.
Yeah, definitely not with the Spurs, definitely not with the Warriors.
Yeah.
And it's time for our favorite segment on the show, bold predictions. All right, before we approach our next episode, what's your bold prediction?
This is going to be a pretty bold one. I think the San Francisco 49ers go and beat the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons did not play very well against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The offense is not clicking. And when you can't get Devontae Freeman the ball enough, that's a guy that you really need to win. They can't score in the red zone. They're having a lot of turnovers. San Francisco with Blaine Gabbert, I think he plays good enough.
How many touchdowns?
Victory.
How many touchdowns?
I think he throws for 2 touchdowns. The Atlanta defense, they started off well, but they've been giving up a lot of points to subpar teams. San Francisco, go and get that win, make that bold prediction come true.
Seems you've gone the other way now on Atlanta, whereas the beginning of the season you were pretty hot on them.
I've learned a lot about that team, and some of it is not to my liking.
Dan Quinn would not be proud.
Yeah.
All right, what's your bold prediction, Brett?
My bold prediction, the Philadelphia Eagles beat the Cowboys by 20 points. I think once this offense gets clicking, they've been dropping a lot of passes. I think they can improve that. They have players who usually catch them. Jordan Matthews has just been a little cold lately. They've been getting Zach Ertz more involved. I think the key is getting Jason Peters back healthy. I think this bye week helped. A lot of the injuries on the offensive line, on defense, especially an inside linebacker. Kiko Alonso, Michael Kendricks will be back. I think this is going to be the Eagles playing at their full capabilities, which is pretty high.
My bold prediction of the week comes with the New England Patriots. I'm going to take Rob Gronkowski, 3 touchdown catches, which isn't really that hard. Maybe he'll get 4. We'll see, depending on what the score is at the end. But I'm going to take him 3 touchdown catches. Quick picks for the end of the episode. We'll take the Broncos and the Colts next week. Who you got?
Gonna go Broncos. I think Andrew Luck gets benched in the second half. Matt Hasselbeck, he's gonna lead the Colts to a loss in that second half. I thought I was gonna say victory. I said loss. Broncos are gonna win big.
Yep, definitely Broncos. The defense is just too good.
I'm going to go the other way on this one. I'm going to take the Colts. I think that defense can get pretty high in front of their home crowd, especially with Peyton Manning coming back home. So we'll see. But until next time, Brandon Corey, Jeremy Vela, I'm Brett Malaman. We'll see you next time on BSPN.